Welcome to Internet Bullying presentation. My name is Tracy Mazarana, and I work at North Central Behavioral Health Systems. I'm a Community Relations Coordinator and Prevention Specialist, and I will be talking with you about not only internet bullying, but also sexting and just explicit emails, social networking in general, and safety as far as all of that is concerned, for not only for our youth but also for ourselves as well. Bullying really knows no boundaries, and it's sometimes really hard to know how to start a conversation about something like online safety, especially when you are talking with teenagers in particular, or preteens as well, due to the fact that they know it all. So it's really difficult sometimes to be able to break down those boundaries and be able to talk with them comfortably about it. But it's a very important conversation to have, because online safety can get very much so out of control and in a tailspin really fast as well. Throughout the presentation, if you do have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the text box that you see on your screen. I will answer all questions once the presentation is completed. And in addition to that, we will be including a video clip tonight, and also there will be a opportunity for you to participate in a poll if you are participating in this webinar in the live form. If you're listening to a recorded one, you'll be able to review the results of our poll. So there'll still be some benefit to that for you. I guess I'd like to get started by talking about a movie that I actually saw. I had an opportunity to sit down with my children, which are 7 and 8 years old, both girls, and actually they had my son's friend was over as well, and he's 11. So I had a little bit of an age span there. I had 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 11-year-old. You'll see the point to my story here in the beginning. This year there was a ABC Family Original movie, and it's called Cyberbully. You may have seen it, you may have not. It's worth taking a look at, though. It aired for the first time this year, and I'm glad I set aside some time to watch it. There was a great deal of conversation before this movie, because we talked about it first, what it was going to be about, and during, and definitely after the movie. We did quite a bit of rewinding and pausing, etc. This show, it really opened up some lines of communication for all of us. The show touched on many issues that teens are dealing with today, and many of these issues were brought on as a result of the cyberbullying that the young girl experienced. Just a short synopsis of it. It was about a young girl named Taylor. She was very pretty, 17-year-old high school student, and she receives a computer from her mother for her birthday. Laptop. Very excited. Finally has some freedom and some independence, being able to go online without her mom, always looking over her shoulder. However, she soon ends up finding herself as a victim of betrayal and bullying while visiting a social website. And it's only after this life-changing event that she learns that she's not alone. She meets other teens, including a classmate of hers, who had a similar experience. Her mom is very upset by all of this incident, and she does take it to the school system and state legislation, etc., to try to help to prevent others from going through the same ordeal as her daughter did. As I stated, we discussed this, thoroughly. It's a really good way to introduce or to start a conversation about online safety with kids. Sometimes I think that we're so conditioned to look for the physical signs of bullying that we tend to overlook the underlying emotional stress that cyberbullying can cause, and the fact that it can be just as damaging, if not more damaging. I have some online terms on the screen now. Many of them may be very obvious to you, maybe not. It's very possible. I tried to include all of them that I could think of. We have the internet, a chat room. These are some of the things we'll be talking about, or you'll see pop up on a slide here and there throughout the presentation. An instant message, a text message, an email message, a website, a file, a JPEG. You may hear some of these terms, an MP3, a Trojan, a blog or an online journal, a profile. It's real important that you do familiarize yourself with these terms. It'll definitely help open lines of communication, and it will also help you to be alerted to any possible issues that could come up. Okay. As we go along, you'll see some of these terms are being defined for you as well. The most important point on this particular slide that I would like to make is that the internet makes it possible for anyone, anywhere to access the internet, to visit, chat, or speak with anyone who is connected. The key words here are anywhere, and you'll see why as we continue on. Nothing you put on the internet is private. And even though many times that's the feeling that cyberbullies will feel, they think that they are anonymous, but they're very wrong. Everything that happens online is traceable. Cyberbullies can be identified, and you should not let the bullying get you down. But you should tell authorities what's happening. And if I'm talking with youth at this point, I would say, tell your parents, tell your teachers, or any trusted adult that you know. This defines what a chat room is. It's kind of like a virtual park that allows people from anywhere in the world to visit the same virtual park. So you can see where in the event of a cyberbullying type situation, how if a cyberbully were able to get more people involved in that chat room to kind of, for lack of better words, to pick on that targeted person, this could be very damaging. And as it states there, a chat room, it can contain 1 to 1,000 people. So word can travel very fast. An instant message. It's a private communication between two people online using a chat. By using instant message, only the one person I sent the message to will be able to read that message. It is a form of private chatting. However, that message can be forwarded, that IM message. And that's what people need to remember. Your best friend may be sharing some very intimate things with you, and then you may be sharing some things back and feel real comfortable about that while you're getting along and you're best friends. But what happens if somebody gets upset with you? Will they save that message? Will they end up sending it on to other people? They could forward it on to the entire student body. And this part here talks about an email message. Same idea. A point I want to make on this particular slide is you can receive attachments and attachments that contain pictures. Since our topic is cyberbullying, that's why I'm pointing this particular part out. Later we'll be talking about sexting as well. And here's my point. Your picture, you may have intended only for one person to see that picture, or your attachment that you include. However, once you send that message out there into the World Wide Web, if you will, then it's open game for whoever you send it to. They may forward it. And it's also important to point out the fact that attachments, sometimes you send the wrong attachment. It could be something that was done very innocently, but the damage is done. Once you send it out there, you can't take it back. And the point here I have on this slide is in bold and in red. Do not trust links from emails or other digital storefronts. And that's just good sound advice throughout for the safety of your computer when you're dealing with different websites and stores and such. So I'll come to this point here and there throughout the topic tonight. But you may be already asking yourself, if you happen to be a parent listening, what can parents do? Parental involvement is definitely key to preventing cyberbullying or bullying in general. But it's important, with keeping kids safe online, that the parents are involved. So how can parents stay involved? Need to keep current with technology. So one way is by participating in something such as this webinar. And even just familiarizing yourself with the terms that we covered in one of the beginning slides. You don't have to be an expert, but it goes without say that a little bit of understanding can really go a long way with this. You want to keep communicating with your child about what he or she is experiencing on the internet. And just even with technology in general, because the youth today, parents, all of us, in the working community, just socially, a lot of folks have the smartphones, and we have online right there, so it's instant messaging constantly, emailing constantly, Facebook, all the social networks. So the line of communication is open pretty much constantly. Therefore, parents need to be aware of what forms of communication their children are using. They need to be aware of how they are accessing the internet and what different technologies they're utilizing to do that. It's important to know the lingo. If you don't know the lingo, for instance with texting, if you don't know what some of the lingo means, it's real important that you ask. If you don't have a good line of communication with your child and you're unable to ask, or say you're a teacher and students, you happen to intercept a text and you don't understand what the message means, they're not willing to share with you, it's real important you do some research and you find that out. It's extremely important, I can't stress enough, to know the lingo. And then you need to keep checking the internet activity. Know where they're going online. Know where the popular sites are for your child. It's also very important, because we're trying to improve communication here, it's very important that you let them know that you will keep checking, because you need them to understand why you're doing this. You want them safe. And it's real important to point out to your child that the internet is a public forum, and it's never truly private. So even if they say, I'm just talking with my friend, you need to really hammer that out. You need to explain that very clearly to them. It is never truly private once it is on the internet. Also, kids have a responsibility in this too. So what can they do? It's important for all of us to realize that cyberbullying starts early, and we have to teach our children and ourselves about password safety. This can be kind of tricky, especially when maybe you're dealing with teens and they're just positive their best friend is going to be their best friend forever. There's not a doubt in their mind. They share everything, so they feel they can share their passwords. This can be very dangerous, and it's never too young to teach that. We discussed it in my home, and as I mentioned, our kids are only 7 and 8, and they have different passwords set up on the internet, and they have best friends. And it's real hard to explain to them that when they're 10, they may not have the same best friend, possibly. We hope they do, but you never know. So you need to protect your identity and understand that by protecting your identity, in turn, you're definitely protecting your reputation. And that's by being careful that you're not sharing, depending on what form we're talking about, but maybe that you're not sharing your name or that you're not sharing pictures. Once you put it in the digital world, it can stay out there forever. If you Google someone's name, you'd be amazed at the different things that pop up. And so it's extremely important to create secure passwords. What's an example of a secure password? Usually it's recommended maybe a combination of numbers and letters. Not so much your favorite sports team or your pet's name, things like that. It's a little better to do a combination of numbers and letters. Many elementary students or teens do share that password with at least one friend, and that's definitely one friend too many. As we were talking about earlier, friends can end up being cyberbullies too, and that's extremely hurtful. It's real frightening because once they get your password, they could definitely go in and pretend that they were you, for instance, and say some hurtful things and damage some other friendships for you or your reputation. In addition to that, though, they could also lock you out of your own account, so you couldn't even go in and make changes yourself at that point. You can see here we're just defining some more terms. JPEG contains pictures. MPG would contain a video. Sometimes cyberbullies will make a video about why someone is the ugliest person at school. And maybe they'll go around and even interview other students and get them to say horrible things about that person. And then at that point, possibly just post that right on the internet. They can send it to the whole student body. It's pretty hard to overcome. Peer pressure, as you can imagine with bullying, whether it be cyberbullying or bullying in person, it can lead people to bullying. That's true. Peer pressure can. However, what we need to realize is that it can also lead people to say bullying is not acceptable. But that obligation falls on us, and us as parents, us as teachers, leaders, friends, to be able to feel that we have the ability to step up and to not allow it, to state that it is not acceptable, that it's inappropriate behavior. So with that said, how do we get people to take responsibility for their own words? Leading by example, I guess, would be a good way to start. It's real important to think before you speak. On this topic, I guess we'd say think before you hit send. You have to realize that we may think that what we're saying is funny at the time, but it could end up being extremely hurtful. And once it's been said, or worse yet, sent across the World Wide Web, the damage is done. My husband and I spend a lot of time talking to our kids about, thinking before they speak. And this poses a bit of an extra challenge, I'm sure, as you can imagine, because kids don't tend to have a built-in filter. That's something you have to teach as well. So many times they'll say it as it is. But it's something that we do work on, and we want them to appreciate the differences in other people, but definitely not to pick on them or to point them out in a negative way. So I guess, don't forward that hurtful text or email, and just put a stop to it. You can't support it. And that's where the personal responsibility comes in when you're talking about cyberbullying. This slide discusses a blog or an online journal. Many times, children will open a blog or an online journal, and they'll relate it to their everyday lives. They'll talk about what happened at school. They'll talk about what they're going to do over the weekend. They'll talk about what's going on with their boyfriend or their girlfriend. Many times those has a lot of personal information in it. I think journals are a great thing. Not that anyone's looking for my personal opinion. I don't know that they belong online, however, because of that fear of that being, posted to or forwarded to other people. Again, it could be a very innocent mistake. However, you wouldn't want someone knowing possibly your intimate details of your day or how your date went or whatever it may be. So some thought needs to go into that. And if you do, as a teacher or as a parent, if you are encouraging the online journaling, then safety tips really need to be revisited a lot. To back that up, this slide, everything you type into a screen gets recorded electronically. You're leaving cyber footprints all over the place when you get online. Again, if you don't think that you are, just Google a name and see what comes up. Cyberbullying is being cruel to others by sending or posting harmful material or pictures. It's using the internet or other digital technologies such as cell phones. And sometimes it does involve repeatedly sending offensive messages. Sometimes people will send thousands of text messages to one person. And not everyone has unlimited texting, so that opens up a whole nother issue for parents and teens. So, we need to have some rules. There has to be house rules for using the computer. Without rules, there's chaos. So, before going online, you got to go over these rules of computer usage. And your rules may be slightly different than someone else's, but you need to hit the high points for safety. How much time are you going to allow them on the computer? What time of day do you want them on the computer? Or utilizing their cell phones? This is real important too, that location on where the computer can be accessed. Many times if someone is being cyberbullied, they have a hard time talking about it with their parents or with an adult or even with another friend. They're very embarrassed, and it's a sense of, they're definitely feeling out of control. You can set up parental controls. You can decide what information may be shared with others. It's a good time to talk about the passwords not being shared, for instance. And then talking about the importance of, if it's not, for instance, if it's a picture, if you're not comfortable with your parents seeing it, if you're not comfortable with your friends seeing it, your best friend possibly, if it is something that could be embarrassing down the line, it's something you would not want your teacher to see, maybe it doesn't belong online. That's the things you need to think before you click. The online rules should be assigned by all users and posted near that computer. It's just keeping people safe, keeping people honest, however you want to look at that. Kids, they connect with the internet. We all do. We're using the internet a lot. They watch the internet, they listen to it, they surf on it. So many kids have been bullied online, however. You can see some statistics I included here as well. There's pretty high percentages. 58% have not told their parents or even an adult about something that was said to them or happened to them online. So they're keeping it to themselves. And that can really get out of control fast. So the more you can open the lines of communication, really the better. Here's a very important point. Who are the computer experts? When I first started talking on this subject, some of you may have been thinking that the topic of internet bullying maybe was a little young for my 7 and 8-year-old and our 10-year-old friend that I was discussing. But you can see here, most of the computer experts in our homes are between the ages of 3rd and 12th grades. It's extremely true in our home. I actually get assistance from my kids occasionally online. They really know their way around, especially with my cell phone. They're like experts with technology. They just adapt to it so comfortably. This slide here is just meant to reiterate some of that safety for youth. And this goes into some other points as well, beyond bullying, just safety in general, because it's hard to talk about cyberbullying and not get into safety concerns, because it's just natural that you would be concerned about that as well. You never will meet someone or have them visit you without the permission of your parents. Say you've been chatting with someone in one of those online chat rooms. Just because they're saying that they're the same age as you, or that they go to a neighboring school, and different things, it doesn't mean that any of that is true. You need to talk to your parents. And you definitely need to tell your parents right away if you read anything on the internet that makes you feel uncomfortable. Remembering that the people online may not be who they say they are. It's pretty scary to realize that, a 12-year-old girl may in all actuality be an older man, an actual predator. So you never want to give out personal information. Your name, your home address, even your school name, just where you go to school. You may think, well, you go to a large enough school, they wouldn't figure it out. No damage done. Actually, it could be a very scary situation. The next slide discusses sexting, and I felt it real important to bring this up as well. It's a term that refers to texting sexual images and messages. And if you think that your teen hasn't been exposed to it, please take a look at the stats below. You may ask yourself, why would kids choose to sext anyway? Well, they may choose to sext for many reasons. Possibly to impress someone that they think is cute or have a crush on. One of their friends might dare them to do it. There's a lot of peer pressure for different reasons. They may be getting pressure from, a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Or possibly they're receiving sext messages, and in turn, they decide to go ahead and reciprocate, thinking, well, it can't really hurt if they respond to it. But honestly, I believe the last thing on their minds is any potential consequences. Speaking to our kids about the consequences of sexting is really important. Encouraging them to wait and think before they hit send is very important. Another point to make is that kids do share sext messages. They might find it to be funny. They might think that it's just unbelievable that someone would say something like that, and they can't get past it, and they feel the need to share that, so they may forward that on. 40% of teens and young adults say that they have had a private sext message passed on to them from someone else. So you don't want to assume that anything online is private. I can't say that enough or stress that enough. They could share it on purpose, just to be mean or to show off, or possibly they share it because they get angry. Again, you know, your best friend today could possibly be extremely angry with you next week. They could post it online, or maybe they would just go ahead and email it to everyone at school, or even send it to one person, thinking that they trust that person, and then that person may forward it on to several people. Sending an image to a social network account puts it out there for anyone to view. Anyone that views their page, possibly if their settings are lax, possibly anyone could view it. Sex messages also get shared inadvertently because someone can view it just by being near that person. And again, as I stated earlier, sometimes the wrong attachment is sent, and it's done very innocently, but damage done. Not to mention the fact that if you are selling a computer, possibly you may have incompletely formatted your hard drive when you sell that computer, and some images are still left on that computer. And that goes the same for smartphones. You know, many of them have I believe it's called an SD card, and that holds information and digital images and things like that. So the person may remove their SIM card from the phone and then donate that phone or give that phone to a friend to use, and the SD card may have remained in there, and therefore some of those images may remain with the phone to be potentially forwarded on. It opens the door for more harassment, though. It's important to talk to your kids and to understand that your child may receive a sext message, or they may be shown a sext message. So it may not even be intended for your child. You know, cell phone numbers especially, they change all the time. And someone may be thinking they're sending a message to an old boyfriend with a picture attachment. You never know. And lo and behold, your child receives this message. So they need to know what to do with that. So it's our responsibility as adults to speak with them about what to do if they do receive such a message, so that they know that they can talk with us, show us that. Then we as adults can go in and block that, or speak with the authorities if we need to, that kind of thing. If they've already received such a message, then it's important to tell them that sending or receiving a sext message is never safe and it's never private. You don't want to ask intrusive questions, you know, because of trust issues. I get that. But you need to let them know that they can come to you at any time. We've discussed peer pressure. You know, sexting can be like any other peer pressure. A boy maybe asks for a sexy picture, and you're afraid if you don't send one, he won't be interested, or possibly the girl is desperate for a boy's attention and initiates contact by going ahead and sending a picture or just a suggestive message. However, you need to realize that it's not something that is private. You wouldn't go walking around your school naked. So you need to ask yourself before you go sending a picture of yourself, which could end up being released to the entire school, and they could see that image. It could be posted on Facebook by someone that you felt was your friend, and maybe they're not now. It can get very scary, and it is a form of sexual harassment. Sexting can be considered a form of sexual harassment, and with most schools that are adopting this no tolerance policy, it could land you in more trouble than in what it's worth. So again, think before you send. Your photo or your message will likely be forwarded, shared, and posted. No matter how private you intend the message or image to be, it's probably going to be forwarded, shared, or posted. If potentially a breakup happens, and then you're faced with going to school with, possibly with a reputation, that, it could be very painful and difficult and definitely humiliating. It's important to realize, too, it's okay to say no. Not only can you say no to taking and sending pictures of your own, but you can definitely protect others and not participate. Don't forward those messages. Don't hit send. And there's other ways to express interest in someone. Because you need to understand, if you do, even if you only send it to one person, then you have no control over what that person decides to do with that message. You just need to find other ways to express your interest in someone, other than sending a potentially permanent digital recording way out there into cyberspace. Possibly you can go on a date, or if it's a guy that has an interest in a girl, maybe you can send her flowers. Maybe you can write a letter, something more personal. You may need to, I won't discuss all of these safety tips here, but you may need to disallow chat rooms. You need to recognize sometimes that chat rooms can be a playground of sexual predators. I've heard it many times in many different places, whether it be at work or with friends talking, different things. It's very important that you have the computer in an area of your home where you can easily supervise your child's internet activity. It's not always a good idea to allow someone to be tucked away in their room with their devices. It's just like in the real world, if you will. It's important to know who your kids' online friends are. It's important to know who they're hanging out with, whether it's in cyberspace or whether it's in your own living room. It's just an important thing. If your child, especially if your child is a little bit younger, role-playing with your child can be a really good way to express different dangers that might come up online. To make them a little more comfortable, and yourself as well. Remembering the 4 R's, recognize techniques used by online predators, refuse requests for personal information, respond assertively if you are ever in an uncomfortable situation. That's the best thing to do. Just exit the program or log off, and then tell an adult. It's not a good idea to delete them, though. And the reason for that is, in the event that you need to, the last R here, report it to law enforcement, it helps to have that paper trail, or electronic paper trail, if you will, to kind of get things rolling with that. So it's not a good idea to delete them. But you definitely don't have to continue to put yourself out there and keep reading the messages. At that point, it might be a good idea, at that point, if you kind of turn the reins over to your parents, possibly, or that trusted adult to go ahead and take care of the interactions that are going on between that person that may be cyberbullying you, and to do the printing off and to communicate and help you communicate with law enforcement on it. And we discussed the different social networking kind of websites and things. And the biggest point to make here is in bold and in red, internationally. It is out there, people. It goes out, whether you're working with Facebook or MySpace or whatever the social networking site happens to be. It's international. There's lots of different forms of technology. We discussed most of them. Not all. And there's some differences between bullying. Bullying can be direct. It can occur on school property. Possibly poor relationships with teachers they may display. Could be some physical hitting, punching, teasing or name calling. Gossiping is huge with that. And then nonverbal, just the use of gestures or excluding someone, possibly just someone in the lunchroom, and maybe they sat at that table all the time, and the bully has decided they're not going to be sitting there any longer. So as they approach, they may just slide their tray over so there isn't room for them. It's a pretty strong gesture. And then there's some cyberbullying points here. Direct. With bullying, feels more anonymous with cyberbullying. Can occur off of school property. Yes, they can go online at school and do these things too, but more than likely it occurs off of school property. You may have a very good relationship with teachers. Could be an excellent student with cyberbullying. Could be anyone. And they could definitely fear that loss of technology privileges, really depending on it. And they're under the radar a little more than a bully, because they may remain anonymous a little longer than you'd think they could. And the emotional reactions cannot be determined. I know I've received a text message before, or even an email, and kind of misinterpreted what was meant by it, and I possibly took offense to it until I took the time to talk to that person in person, and at that point then I knew what they really meant by it. But sometimes it's really hard to tell just by reading the text, what without any emotional reaction. There's different categories of cyberbullies. There's the inadvertent, kind of role-playing, responding. They may not realize it's cyberbullying. And there's the vengeful angel, righting wrongs, just protecting themselves. One of my favorites is Mean Girls, that bored entertainment, kind of ego-based. They just promote their own social status. Many times it is done in a group. And then power hungry. They definitely want a reaction. They like to control with fear. And this one's kind of got a funny name, but Revenge of the Nerds. It's kind of a subset of the power hungry. Sometimes they are victims themselves of, more of that in-person bullying. So they feel like this is their way of maybe feeling like they're standing up for themselves finally. There's different types of cyberbullying that's defined. And these are some of the terms that are important to become familiar with as well. So a pretty serious accusation, if you will, to state that you feel someone is harassing you online, or that someone is cyber stalking another person. Say about that. The next slide is this is from a site on Cartoon Network, actually. So this could be a helpful site to maybe check out, especially if you are working with some of the tweens or preteens, if you will, and some of the younger people. It defines in here, what is bullying. It's something that happens when someone repeatedly hurts or threatens another person on purpose. It can come in many forms. How do you stop it? Whether you're the one being bullied or someone who sees it happening, there's a lot that you can do to stop it. But the best thing to do, and the point of this campaign, is actually to speak up. So ways to do that. There's a few points. Tell an adult. You've got to talk to somebody, whether it be your parents or a teacher, someone that you trust that can step in and stop the bullying. It's not tattling, it's not snitching. You're going to be helping someone out. Be friendly. You want to say a few kind words to the person who was bullied. It can make a huge difference. You can let them know that you care. And it also lets them know that bullying is not okay and it's not their fault. And you'll want to get involved. Possibly you can volunteer to help at your school with the bullying prevention program. You can encourage everyone at your school to speak up against bullying. And the point they're making here with this campaign is that together we can make a difference and we can stop bullying. So speak up. At this point, I'd like to show a short video clip to you. This is a YouTube video, and I will position the volume, but I would also ask in a high volume, but I'd also ask you at this point to turn your volume up. Upon completion of the video, there'll be a short poll for you to take as well. Just bear with me one moment while I get this together for you. Okay, here we go.
Hi, have one. Here you go, pass it on. Oh, hey! Take one.
Hey, Laura.
The words you write online can cause real pain. If you wouldn't say it, why would you type it?
Okay, thank you. Thanks for bearing with me on that. Just wanted to take an opportunity to show you that video. And you can see the link to access it as well as there on the screen if by chance you did not have sound or weren't able to view it at this time. It is worth taking a look at. It's a clip from MTV. So I was trying to kind of incorporate youth with the Cartoon Network taking a look at bullying, and also more of that junior high, high school, even college type age taking a look at it as well. So hopefully you'll be able to, if you weren't able to view it, you'll be able to view that. I included here at the end some resources for parents, for any of us, whether we be educators or parents or whatever it may be, that you may want to take a look at as well. You're always welcome to forward any questions, and I'll be taking a look to see what questions we may have. Okay. At this time, if you could go ahead and take a look at the poll and answer that for us. Okay. Thank you for taking the time to do that. And in closing, I would just like to say that digital harassment can last forever. It's real important that we realize that there is a thin line between our words and the wounds that they can cause. You may think that you know who will receive your images, your messages, your text messages, whatever it may be, but you really don't, and that's the point. It's not private. So protect yourselves, and protect your kids. And thank you for taking the time to sit in on our webinar for cyberbullying.